Welcome to today's explainer. Look, we are diving straight into a profoundly captivating, incredibly emotional narrative today, Arthur Golden's Memoirs of a Geisha. And it's not just a story about a specific time and place. It is this massive, sweeping journey of survival, adaptability, and female resilience, all set against the deeply restrictive yet undeniably beautiful backdrop of pre-World War II Japan. We're going to be looking closely at how one young girl navigates a world where beauty is literal currency and where identity often has to be totally sacrificed just to survive. To really wrap our heads around our protagonist's journey, we have to start with the main metaphor of the whole thing: water. The main character often talks about herself as being like a river, completely guided by external forces. And that perfectly sets up the tension at the heart of the story, right? We are watching a young girl whose life is constantly being steered by these powerful, often overwhelming currents. Things like destiny, severe economic hardship, and incredibly rigid societal expectations.
So let's jump right into Section 1, A Life Shaped by Fate.
Picture this for a second. Our protagonist is a 9-year-old girl named Chiyo. After her mother falls seriously ill, her father makes this incredibly desperate choice. He basically sells Chiyo and her sister out of their poor fishing village of Yoroido. Chiyo gets sent to an okiya, which is a boarding house for geisha, in Kyoto's famous Gion district. Imagine being totally stripped of your autonomy at 9 years old. In an instant, she loses her family, her home. Eventually, she even loses her name. Her childhood is effectively stolen, and she literally becomes a financial investment for the women running the house.
But right in the middle of all this cruelty, there is a massive turning point. Chiyo is crying by a stream when this wealthy, dignified stranger, who we only know as the chairman, stops to comfort her. He buys her shaved ice, gives her his handkerchief, and honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the emotional core of the novel. That one single moment of kindness gives Chiyo hope. It gives her this laser-focused goal. She resolves to become a successful geisha simply so she can one day reach his social circle and be near him again.
Moving right along to Section 2, the real geisha world.
First off, the locals in Kyoto actually use the term geiko, and it's super important to understand the visual and professional ladder here. The maiko, they're the apprentices. They're youthful, vibrant, and you can instantly spot them by their bright kimono patterns and striking hair accessories that meticulously reflect the changing seasons. Plus, they wear that iconic white makeup, which acts almost like a mask to erase their personal identity and create a living work of art. The geiko, on the other hand, are the fully trained professionals. Their style is much more serene and understated, and their performances are all about absolute mastery and grace.
We also definitely need to clear up some major Western misconceptions while we're at it. The word geisha quite literally translates to art person, from gei meaning art and sha meaning person. They are highly respected traditional artists who spend years mastering classical dance, music, and conversation. They are not sex workers. Now, while the novel does explore the complex dynamics of patronage, real-life geiko operate within a society of strict artistic rules and dignified cultural preservation.
All right, Section 3, The Path to Becoming Sayuri.
The sheer intensity of the artistic training these women go through is staggering. Becoming a geisha means mastering instruments like the 3-stringed shamisen, learning incredibly complex tea ceremonies, and undergoing super strict dance instruction, and the pressure is immense. In traditional dance training, if a student makes a mistake, a teacher might actually issue an otome, which is an indefinite suspension where the student has to leave until her superiors negotiate to get her back. It's an environment that demands absolute perfection.
But hey, the art is really only half the story. The other half is pure economics. The okiya is this matriarchal system, run by a woman known as Mother. But make no mistake, Mother treats these girls purely as financial investments. Think about taking on the modern equivalent of a massive mortgage just for your work uniform. The young women are trapped by massive debts from their training, their room and board, and their incredibly expensive kimonos. And get this, with all the accessories, those kimonos can weigh up to 44 pounds. A geisha's ultimate success determines whether she brings wealth to the house or just stays a financial burden.
This brings us to Section 4. The price of beauty. In Gion, a woman's physical appearance is literally her social capital, which makes beauty both a powerful weapon and a massive vulnerability. This whole dynamic is perfectly captured by 2 older geisha who shape Sayuri's life. On one hand, you have Mameha, who offers Sayuri strategic, intelligent mentorship, proving that women can uplift each other and navigate this intense world together. But in stark contrast, you have Hatsumomo, the Okiya's top earner, who unleashes this toxic, cruel rivalry. doing everything she possibly can to sabotage Sayuri's rising career.
Now, Hatsumomo's cruelty actually stems from a tragic reality. She's dealing with her own fading beauty within a heavily patriarchal system. This world simply does not offer long-term security for aging women. She knows her social capital is slipping away, so she feels incredibly threatened by Sayuri's youth and her unique blue-gray eyes. It's a pretty tragic reflection of how this restrictive system forces women to fiercely compete against one another just to survive rather than teaming up.
As Sayuri's fame explodes, so does her internal emotional conflict. She has to navigate the affections of Nobu, who is this physically scarred, direct, and fiercely loyal businessman. He can offer her real financial security and protection as a patron, but she secretly harbors her idealized, lifelong love for the chairman. So, her physical survival depends on pleasing powerful men like Nobu, but her heart is desperately yearning for the man who showed her kindness when she was just a helpless kid.
Okay, Section 5. A world transformed by war.
Literally just as Sayuri reaches the peak of her profession, World War II hits and completely transforms Japanese society. The Geisha districts are abruptly forced to close as the entire country shifts into wartime production. Sayuri and the others are thrown straight from a life of incredible refinement into pure survival mode, doing grueling manual labor just to get by. When the war finally ends, they face this incredibly challenging post-war landscape, trying to reunite and rebuild this fragile, altered version of their former lives.
In all this post-war chaos, Sayuri attempts a really desperate plan to secure her future with the chairman, without alienating Nobu. However, the bitter rivalries fostered by the Okiya system come roaring back to haunt her. In a super painful climax, her old friend Pumpkin, who is harboring some deep resentment from their past over Sayuri replacing her as the Okiya's heir, orchestrates a devastating betrayal. She brings the chairman to witness Sayuri's stage disgrace instead of Nobu. It's a tragic reminder of how the intense competition of their youth leaves these lasting scars, and how the pursuit of survival often fractures even the closest friendships.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 6. Fact, Fiction, and Legacy.
So, the novel itself was heavily inspired by Arthur Golden's interviews with a real-life retired Geico Minako Iwasaki. But there is a pretty stark contrast between Golden's fictionalized Western Cinderella narrative and Iwasaki's lived reality. Iwasaki actually felt her profession was highly inaccurately portrayed. She stressed that the geisha world is a society entirely apart, complete with its own strict rites and rituals, and she felt that Golden's depiction compromised the dignity of her true experiences.
This disconnect highlights a much broader debate around Orientalism. Critics argue that the novel hypersexualized elements of geisha life, like the misuage coming-of-age ceremony, specifically to cater to Western audience expectations of exoticism. Conversely, Iwasaki and other defenders emphasize that true geisha society is governed by strict artistic rules and independence. They firmly separate their high art profession from the tropes of submission and prostitution that are so often depicted by Western stereotypes.
But despite these very valid debates over historical accuracy, the book absolutely leaves a lasting legacy. Beneath the controversy, readers connect with a deeply moving, beautifully atmospheric story of female resilience. It really is a testament to adaptability, showing how a woman can survive and even find her own unique form of power within an incredibly restrictive, demanding world.
Which leaves us with a final, profound question to reflect upon as we close this out. Looking at the immense sacrifices Sayuri made, losing her family, losing her name, and enduring all those toxic rivalries just to become a living work of art, what is the true cost of ambition? And in a world that completely dictates your worth, how much of your true self must you sacrifice just to survive, and ultimately to find love? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating journey with me today.